Sorry, last a couple of times we have missed the sessions. Primarily from my side, I would say, because this season where summer season, a lot of activity, very well, it happens in US, and holidays and all kind of schedule happens. So as a Grihastha, I am not having full freedom to do whatever I want. Therefore, I have to say yes, most of the times, of course. Adrinda, sorry, I could not really to do it last week, but I'm glad that you're ready now and I'm ready. I think with your customary sloka, do you want to start Namaskara first and then I'll ask Ara, let me ask questions right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Narasimha Akhilajnana Divakaraha Jayatyamitu Sajnana Sugashaktipayo Abhramam Bhangarahitam Ajadam Vimalam Sada Ananda Theertha Bhaje Tapatrayapaham Apadamauli Paryantam Gurunama Kritim Smaret Tena Vigna Pranashyanti Siddhyanti Manorathaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om.
Okay, thank you. So, I know that you have a flow, you have planned out, the step by step, etc. But based on where we left, and also in between, we have exchanged some messages on what kind of topics you want to cover, etc. I have a set of 6 questions to ask, which would probably set the stage agenda for you to develop your ideas and present your material in whichever sequence you want. Somehow, I have got the impression and understanding based on whatever I read outside as well. Also, listening to you all this 10 sessions also I think we have done so far. So listening to all those things, I get a sense that I'm sure many viewers would agree with me that among all other Acharyas, the Ananda Theertha Muni lays enormous amount of stress on Shabda Agama Pramana. The fundamental premise, I think I keep repeating it every time almost, fundamental premise is that, the Swarupa identity or the Moksha definition, or Sadhana definition, Phala definition, etc., they are all beyond the normal, reach of 5 senses. Therefore, we have to perforce depend upon an authoritative source which is no way impacted by the imperfections which are in any or all of the 5 senses. And that can only be Shastra. That seems to be the platform on which Shrimad Ananda Theertha Muni puts so much of arguments. But that is where I have a problem. I think there is a conundrum kind of a thing, catch-22 kind of situation. What is that Shabda? What is that Agama set? That's the first question. Because everybody says different set. Second thing is, what does it say really? Because I'm very sure the famous, even a simple thing like Tattvamasi and Atatvamasi, you are not able to resolve. That being the case, how does it take the whole text and then say this is the right set of text and this is the right meaning? What authority does it have, as it were, to say that when compared to somebody else? That is one past problem. And when it comes to details, for example, I already mentioned this last time in Maha Bharta Nirnaya, he kind of repudiates all the versions of Maha Bharata saying unbelievable, untrustworthy. That's good argument. I like that. As an intellectual, he's doing it, I like it. But then he comes with a knockout left hook saying, therefore, I will tell you, trust me. That is a little shaky. If I have to trust you, why not trust somebody else? What is the reason I should trust you more than anybody else? That becomes a problem. And then he wrote Bhagavata Tattva Nirnaya, right? Not many have done that. He has done that. But I agree with him somewhat because I think Bhagavata is a phenomenal book. I think if people read and understand Bhagavata, they don't have to read anything else because it has got devotion, it has got karma, it has got Sankhya, it has got Ashtanga Yoga, it has got abstract philosophy, everything. And not only that, in my view, Vedavyasa has connected all of them, not as independent approaches, he's connected all of them. And I want to do my own interpretation. And therefore, I can very well imagine such a low-level guy like me doing my Tatparya, Acharya will definitely do a Tatparya. But then the fact remains that he chose to interpret in a particular way. And then, if you look at Tantrasara Sangraha also, it's a very interesting text. I think I wrote about it in my Dvaita 2.2 series also. You would have read that. He delves into some Ashtanga Yoga very well. I mean, Beautifully he synthesizes. I like that. That's why I like Tantrasara Sangraha. But he makes a point that samadhi is not the ultimate stage in the whole sadhana, right? According to him, aparoksha drishreva yasman moksho nacha anyatha. Unless aparosha is directly you see Sriman Narayana, Sri Hari, there's no moksha. Now, if you talk in terms of Ashtanga Yoga Samadhi state, Patanjali's Samadhi state, etc., it's kind of ambivalent because it can be nirguna also, it can be abstract also. So therefore, they are not so much, shall we say, they don't even go to the point of saying you should see Hari or whatever. Samadhi is Samadhi, there it can. In other words, Srimad Acharya seems to propose Samadhi state is not the ultimate stage, but it's only a penultimate stage. After that also, moksha can come only as a phala from Sri Hari. It's up to him. But Samadhi does not guarantee anything. He seems to take a point. That's an interpretation he's doing, and which I presume he's taking from Devahuti Kapila conversation and all that. I'm sure he's drawing from that. But nevertheless, he does interpretation. Then I also wrote about it. In Tantrasara Sangraha, very deftly introduces Lalita Sahasranama. Though in traditional Madhva circles, it is frowned upon. Lalita Sahasranama kind of thing is frowned upon. He deftly introduces, in TSS 4th chapter 156, he clearly mentioned Vishnuna Brahmane Proktam Grantha Sankochata Astata. That means he is making reference to the conversation between Vishnu and a Brahmana. That is a pointer to Agastya Rishi. And then you take you to Brahmanda Purana, and then you can always connect it to Lalita Sahasranama not because of this one line. After stating this, what Acharya talks about in Tantrasara Sangraha more or less matches the real core of Lalita Sahasranama. Therefore, I would like to argue that he's, like I say, he's Samanvaya Chakravarti. He's kind of bringing Lalita Sahasranama also in this fold like this. That's his right, no doubt about it. But only he's exercising the right as a philosopher and an intellectual to interpret any text and every text is perfectly right in doing that. But erodes the gold standard which he seems to set for Agama Shabda Pramana as the ultimate. I think there is a problem because he's presenting his agenda is a point. And he's also probably the only one person who wrote a commentary or a part of Rg Veda also. Not many have done that. Therefore, in other words, I'm not even going to the off-beaten bogey of non-traceable.
Get to the problem. When he says that Agama is the source on which you will base all these other, tenets, what is the problem there?
The problem is, the problem is, he's saying my interpretation is the only right interpretation. That is the problem.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
So, like I was completing, I'm not even going to the off-beaten bogey of non-traceable text, etc. That's not a big issue in my mind. But nevertheless, it is out there. Yeah.
So I will. I think I will quickly address some of the points that you mentioned. So we are not saying that, rather Acharya is not saying, look, there is no way in which there is no other way in which Atindriya Vastu can be understood. Therefore, we have to depend on Apaurusheya text. Therefore, there exists something like Apaurusheya text. That is a kind of inference you are trying to draw, but that is not how it is. I mean, that is like, placing the cart before the horse kind of thing, right? I mean, you have a purpose, therefore you are creating something. I mean, this will be the equivalent of, man created God in his image and that kind of stuff, right? The deal here is that there is an Apaurusheya Grantha, and thankfully, and that is the only reason, that is the only type of text on which we can base our tenets on whenever those tenets are about things that are beyond the sensory perception. So one point is that. Second point about the Maha Bharta Atmanirnaya also. Basically, I think I mentioned this last time. He's not totally dumping everything that is out there or anything like that. He is basically saying that, look, there is a lot of modifications and things like that. I have collated the text, many versions of that text. I have compared them, and this is what the eventual result is. I mean, he does obviously leave it to the listener's belief or whatever it is to accept it or not accept it, like he does for any other grantha for that matter. He'll just say, I will place the evidence, I will tell you the story it is. There are many quotes that he keeps giving in the middle also.
Yes.
And he also says one more important thing towards the end, which is Bahukalpanusarena. He says that whatever, that there are many versions of this text, right, which are all acceptable as Pramana. So without loss of a pramanya of any one of them, how do you weave all of them together? So that's what he has done in Maha Bharta Atmanirnaya. So everybody else, for example, takes recourse to, I'll give you one example. He says, for example, in one of the Puranas, Rama is said to have, ruled after Sita disappeared. He is said to have ruled for 11,000 years. Another text says 13,000 years. How do you reconcile them? So most often people will say that, look, there is, they are different kalpas. The Ramayana in one kalpa happened with 11,000 years and another kalpa happened 13,000 years. But Acharya gives another text as a pramana, which says that Ramayana, Krishna story, Pandava story do not have any kalpa bheda. You should explain it in a different manner, and only some 105 stories can be explained as as kalpa bheda. For example, in one text, Vamana lifts his left leg, and another Purana text it comes as he lifts his right leg. So he says that in Vaivasva Manvantara he lifted the left leg, and in the other one, even such small detail, you can use kalpa bheda as a tool only for those 104 odd stories. So he's very clear about when to use what kind of tool to explain textual differences. And so he applies the same for Mahabharata and tells you that this is the digest that I am giving you. That is the conclusive digest. Now, I mean, see, your ask is also not fair, I feel. Okay, you are basically saying that, look, I have 1,000 versions in front of me. What do you expect him to do? Do you want him to really, paste all the 1,000 copies and then say how he has derived from there? Not, I mean, that is not fair to ask of him also. And it is not good for a seeker like me who wants to understand, okay, you tell me your conclusion. Right? So I think he has done a very benevolent job as there, and it is very beneficial to us. And we need to, I mean, as an outsider, you can leave whatever you don't like, but at the end of it, those are narratives that cannot be ignored because they have mentions in different texts and not just the main Mahabharata. With that, I will leave the Mahabharata Atmanirnaya. The other thing is the interpretation part. I agree. At the end of it, it will come to, one interpretation versus another interpretation. There is no escape from that, and there is no simple answer for that. And you should not expect a simple answer also for that. It is like, you have this quantum mechanics, there are multiple interpretations, right? That Copenhagen interpretation is there, multiverse interpretation is there. I mean, if somebody says that, how do I know which interpretation is good? There is no simple straightforward answer for that. And no text says that, a layman will get moksha. You need to spend time. You need to try to understand things and then only take your pick as to which interpretation is good. I mean, at the end of it, look, I will still try to justify why Acharya's interpretation is the right one, why it is logical, and so on and so forth. But unless you get into those details, right, there is no way you can appreciate why somebody says that my interpretation is good. I mean, we understand, right? Somewhere, all people say, what, my father is stronger kind of thing is there, right? I mean, so my Acharya's interpretation is correct. So everybody starts there. But after that, you get into the details. You say, why is this line interpreted like this? Why did Acharya read it as, Tattvamasi in Gita Tattva Nirnaya and Atattvamasi in Chandogya, in Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya? Or, why are both interpretations allowed? And which for example, do you do a Lakshanikartha over a Jahajal Lakshana, or how do you do that? So there are these topics which are core to textual interpretation. Unless we understand those issues, right, it is little naive to straight away say this interpretation is better than the other. Or it is also naive to say, what, this is all this about interpretation. So, both interpretations are true in their own sense kind of thing. That is also wrong. And you need to get into the detail and then only understand what suits you or what you think is logical. So with that, let me continue to my point as to at least in today's world, right? How we look at text, how the regular populace looks at text, right? I mean, if you go to art of living, or they place a lot of emphasis on what is this thing called Ashtavakra Gita or some text like that. Or if you go to your Jaggi Vasudev, I forgot his name, Sadguru, then there is some other Hatha Yoga Deepika, or I think there is some such text, right, on which he places in some mantra, Shambhavi or something like that. Some mantra, he gives a lot of precursors on that. Sorry?
Shambhavi Mudra.
Shambhavi Mudra, right. So there are, I mean, so these individual organizations have their own this thing, but so and then Yoga Vasishtha is very common. So we will see how Madhvas look at those texts from from our own perspective, what we consider as Shastra. So when you come into a Madhva school, right, you should see that the texts that we are discussing are totally different or not so different, or how do we even approach them. So that's what we'll continue. I will just share my screen. Give me a minute, please. By the way, the Tantrasara Sangraha thing, it is the word is, at least the text that I have, let me read that thing. It says Vishnuna Brahmane Proktam Grantha Sankochatas Tatha. It doesn't say Lalita Sankochatas Tatha.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That is my interpretation. My connection.
Okay.
It doesn't say Lalita, of course. I agree with you. He only says Grantha Sankocha Tata only, he says. But I am saying the content which follows mirrors what is the content of Lalita Sahasranama.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. We'll come to now. Let me share my screen. I do not know where that thing went actually.
You are exposing your world.
I know, 1 minute, just give me a minute. There it is. You're able to see my screen now? Okay. I think the problem is with the share mode, the screen share mode. Is it readable?
Yes, it is readable. I mean, I can enhance now, so increase the size, so I can do it.
Okay. So let me. Okay. Yeah, is it better?
This is better, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so we looked at where we left. We basically Acharya spent a lot of time in telling why we need an Apaurishaya Grantha. We thought if you place emphasis or on Paurishaya Grantha, that is author text, there are multiple assumptions you need to make before you consider them. On the other hand, if you accept an Apaurishaya Vakya, there is nothing to be nothing left to imagine or assumption. There is no assumption over there. Apurishayatva is known because of the lack of prasiddhi of an author, or in other words, because there is a positive assertion that there is no author and there is prasiddhi to that effect. Then he talked about how it is different, how the regular argument that your Laukika Vakyas, that is your regular worldly sentences, and the Vedic sentences are different because Vedic sentences have the attribute of being known or having as the prasiddhi as unauthored. On the other hand, Laukika Vakyas do not have that. So even if there is some word, some text that we come across which is not whose author is not known, we still say it is authored because of lack of this particular adjective called akartrukatva prasiddhi. And then he also talked about why we accept a Vasishtha saying or a Vishwamitra saying that I saw this mantra or whatever it is. And the reason for that is that their mantra, whatever their vision was there, it is in line with the existing, the Parampara Siddha Veda Vakya. On the other hand, a new Upanishad, or let's say somebody tries to create a new text and pass it off as a new Upanishad. For example, we will talk about this Muktika Upanishad, Charavha Upanishad, Bhash, and Bhakpurucha Upanishad. We will talk about some of these. They are all basically they are not there in anybody's parampara. Okay, not even Advaita parampara. We will come to that. And then on the other hand, we have to accept whatever Vishwamitra sees as mantra, and that is the reason is it is in line with the parampara siddha Veda Vakya. So we also talked about what does prasiddhi mean. We talked about what independent sources mean. Basically, even if the rishi makes a mistake, the parampara kind of catches it. So let's say the rishi has truly seen the mantra, but how do you know that he has actually communicated the same text to his student? So the answer is that, we don't need to make that assumption. It is because the parampara tells you that this is the text that is out there. So before Vishwamitra preached Gayatri mantra to others, there were other to his own students. There were others who knew that mantra. And when Vishwamitra says, "Look, this is the mantra that I saw, that came to my vision," or then others say, "Yeah, that is right. That is the right mantra that is out there." So even if Vishwamitra makes makes any mistake, there are others to validate that, certify that, and that is the reason why we accept the Rishi's vision as the without as final. And there is no dependence on accepting one person here as an apta, as a trustworthy person, so that you listen to one version and then make up your mind that this mantra is final. This is important because similar character is not found in other religions text. So whereas basically if you go to Buddha's texts or even Jaina's texts and all those things, you will find that they all eventually end up with Rishi, with Buddha as the speaker, or the Mahavira as the author. So therefore, you cannot say that there is prasiddhi for them. And same thing applies to Quran and Bible and any other text for that matter. Now we looked at this. We went through this very important shloka from Brahmanda Purana, which Acharya has quoted, which says that the Vedas have all been eternal. They are always there. They are always in Vishnu's mind. So even during Pralaya or Srishti, Vishnu has them. And every creation, every cycle of creation, they are manifested to they are revealed to the Rishi in parts, but without missing the order, without changing the order. Tat kramena iva tairvarnaihi taihi swaraireva nachanyatha. So the text is the integrity of that text is maintained to the last textual element, which is your swara and varna, and without losing the order. So people say that Apaurishaya is when they try to explain, right? They say that it is like Newton discovering the law of gravity, right? The law of gravity is Apaurishaya, it is not heard. Newton just discovered them. So they equate the Rishi's vision to the similar thing, and they say that Rishi saw the truth and then they put in his own words. Sorry, he didn't put in his own words. He used the same words that he saw there or which he heard there. So that is the different thing here. Then Acharya gives other circumstantial evidence, like, if there was no such thing as Apaurishaya text at all, there would no reason, right, why they will be called as Shruti or Veda. And, because those words, they can apply to any other text. So if those words, those labels, those names apply to this particular text, it means that that particular quality is unique to that text. So this is something like this. Asadharanyena vyapadesha bhavanti. So for example, if you see a tall guy, right, you call him Lambu or something like that. Now we all have height. It's not that we are like zero height, right? We all have height. But still we are not called Lambu. Why? Because that is asadharana in that particular person. And we call that person as with that name, whichever is unique to him. Right? So same thing. I mean, the standard example given is Vayu Bhaksha. This sage or this particular yogi lives on air. So we all live on air. But what it means is that he lives only on air. So similarly, when something is called as Shruti, right? Whatever I am telling you, you are also hearing that. But that is not called Shruti. Why? Because that is not the predominant means in which this particular text is either conceived or even communicated. We can write it out. We can what do you call, we can compose it, we can do all those things. But Shruti means the fundamental, there has to be something different about that. There is something unique about this particular Shruti, which means that the text was passed on by hearing only. Okay, it came into being by somebody hearing it. Similarly, Veda is there. The word Veda means to make known, and that applies to many of our books, right? Our maths textbook is there, or our history books are there. They are all, they all make us something known. But for that reason, they are not called Veda. They are called Veda because they are something which is unique. They make those things known, which is your, Parabrahma, Swarga, Naraka, Dharma, Adharma, and all those things. So unless you accept that this particular name means something special, you cannot explain why those terms even came into existence. So, and moreover, even in the Veda itself, you will see many instances where people talk about, sapashyati. There, the word is he saw it. Why will that line even be there? You could have just said he wrote it. So there are instances, there are textual instances which mention, mantra krit, but there are also these darshana vyavahara is also there. Mantra sapashyati is also there. So if you have to explain both of these, you have to admit, I mean, this is primarily for the Nayayika who argues, who accepts Veda as a Pramana, but who doesn't believe that it is Apaurushaya. So the Apaurushaya text itself is telling sapashyati, he saw it. And to be fair to the Nayayika, he also admits that the Rishi is not the doer. The Rishi is not the composer or the author. He puts it on Ishwara as the author.
Yes.
The Rishi is just the medium. So in fact, Sri Jayatirtha, whose Aradhana is tomorrow, right? He gives a very nice point from Udayanacharya's work, who admits that, even either by Pratyaksha or by Vipralipsa, the Vedas cannot be told to have an author. They do not, their source is not known. Udayanacharya admits that much. But after that, he says that therefore, Lord must have created them. The Ishwara must have created them. I mean, he flips there, but he admits that there is prasiddhi, that there is no author to the Veda. Okay, the sources cannot be found. Right. So with there are some more things which I think will come here, but essentially these are the characteristics of an Apaurushaya text-based system. So if you, first of all, you cannot create one at any point of time, right? For example, if you walk into a market and tell them, look, Moses did not give you that 10 commandments, right? It has been beginningless. You tried changing that thing, or God did not create the 10 commandments. It is beginningless. Will people accept it? Or you just say, Hitler did not write Mein Kampf, but he just saw it. You cannot change an authored system into authorless at any point of time. I mean, it will place a lot of tax on your credibility. I mean, you'll have to be really idiotic to accept that kind of stuff. Therefore, it is difficult to even come up with a theory. This is what our historians do, that, they were accepted as authored at one point of time. The rishis themselves wrote it, but later they were branded as unauthored. Even how believable is that theory? Just because we don't like an Apaurushaya system, because it challenges all our regular secular beliefs, it doesn't mean that you can accept something as silly as saying that, a text got branded later as an Apaurushaya system, Apaurushaya text. Nobody will accept it. I mean, we can try an experiment and try to say that, Kalidasa did not write Meghaduta, or, but, we saw it. You can try any of those things. Will it work? It won't work. That is point number one. Second thing which Acharya says, Parampara Siddha Veda Vakyanusaritva, the set of text is closed, right? You cannot create a new text which says that, as per your will and things like that. It has to be closed. So when I say closed, you cannot introduce a new text.
Yes.
Which is very important, because otherwise it will, again, your conclusion, your Vedic conclusion based on the Vedic text will again become questionable if you open it up. But that is not the main reason why we are closing it. The main reason why we are closing it is that is how an Apaurushaya system has to be. Otherwise, there is no way you can determine that this particular system is Apaurushaya. Then finally, not any Tom, Dick and Harry can become a seer. A rishi has to have those characteristics, those 20 characteristics, which is out there. So these three things, right, are going to be very interesting, and they need to. So the system of Veda is beginningless. It is not that they began in time. So if you look at that Brahmanda Purana definition, right, of a rishi, yam Veda ityeva yam pashyet sa Vedaha jnana darshanat. He says that. Veda ityeva yam pashyet sa Vedaha jnana darshanat. So it means that, he should recognize this as a Veda. So when the rishi gets a mantra, or when he sees a mantra, he sees the mantra, its artha, which means its meaning, who is the associated devata, and also the fact that it is unauthored. The rishi is not saying, look, I forgot who the mantra author is. The rishi is not saying that. And because of that, you can say that the Mimamsaka argument, right? I'm now just going back some 4 or 5 sessions back. The Mimamsaka argument that, Veda is authored because we have forgotten the author is so wrong. Because the Rishi himself is explicitly stating, look, there is no author. It is not like we have forgotten who the author is. Veda ityeva yam pashyet sa Veda jnana darshanat. So that is the other objection that this particular sentence removes. Now coming back, yeah. So coming back, these are the characteristics of an Apaurishaya text-based system. There is another argument, which is that, can we, for example, convert? Can somebody look at Bible or Quran? In fact, there is one stream of thought which likens Quran to an eternal text. They think of it also as an Apaurishaya. But that came some n years after, the prophet gave it to the rest of the world. And that is also not beginningless, that particular belief system. Therefore, it is just a figment of imagination. Right? So with that, what we have done so far is to establish the existence of Apaurishaya system based on Prasiddhi, and how it cannot be corrupted, how you cannot have new text coming as, and getting branded as Apaurishaya text, and how anybody cannot become seers. Only some people can become rishis. After talking about all this, let's look at the other problems and why they are not problems. So one issue that people see is that, your texts have references to places like Gandhara, or, anything that has a beginning, right? So how can beginningless texts have these references? So if they contain references, for example, if I write a work today, it will most probably involve things like, mobile phone, tab, laptop, and other things like that. Why? Because I am writing an text which relates to my era. If you go back, let's say 100 years, you will not find similar text. So therefore, it is likely that a text contains references to entities or things in that particular culture or that particular era. So therefore, if there are any references, so now this is where, there is a leap of logic that your opponent is doing, that people who reject Apaurishayatva, the leap of logic that they're doing is that if there is a text name, or if there is a place name or a person name, it must be belonging to that particular era. This is flawed logic. I can write a comic book also which refers to some unknown place. Does that mean that, that place is not in this era, but it exists in some other era? No. See, or I can write a comic book that makes a reference to the existing place. Correct. That also doesn't make it a non-comic book. Right? So these people have these wrong relations between, what can come in a beginningless text. And in any case, the main point that Acharya says is that these are all pravahato anadi, whether these place names like Gandhara or Nachiketa, Vishwamitra, or even textual names, right? These texts have beginning. Itihasa, Purana, right? They all have beginning. But still a beginningless text can refer to them because though the individual instance is not eternal, the cycle of those texts coming or those places being there or those people being there, that cycle is beginningless.
Hello? I lost you.
Oh. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah. It's for a few seconds I lost you.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, we can have beginningless texts also contain references to things which have a beginning, because these entities, right, are pravahato anadi. The river is, the flow itself is beginningless, it is continuous, but individual instance is not staying at one place. So today's Nachiketa, in today's this thing, he has a discussion with Yama and then he moves on. In the next cycle, you have another Nachiketa who comes and then who reads out the same text. Okay, that comes us to the next question, right? I mean, see, this is one of the objections that Ramana Maharshi's disciple is there, Vasishtha Muni or somebody like that. Okay, so he raises that text cannot be apaurusheya because there are personal references. This is your dhiyo yona prachodayat, which means that please instigate our minds. Our means whose? It has to refer to a speaker. Aham suve pitaram. I bring forth the father of this universe. This is Ambrini saying that, right? Tanmam avatu, that Parabrahma may protect me. So who is this? What are these personal references for? So it has to refer to a speaker. So if there is a speaker, it means that he is basically composing this. So this is the other argument which he has given. And he also gives references to much more what do you call difficult ones like anger and which is what you'll find in, for example, in the discussion with Yajnavalkya for one of the rishis. So people say that because of these personal references, the text is not beginningless or apaurusheya. That is also wrong, because the intent and purpose is personal. Like let's say I am taking an oath as the prime minister or chief minister or whatever minister, right? When I am taking an oath, the purpose or there is a personal reference over there, but the text is eternal. Are you there?
Yeah, very much. I'm listening.
So because of this, the modern objections that whatever Ramana Maharshi's disciple or there is another one which is recently brought out by, I think I don't forgot them, some Sudhakar Chaturvedi or something like that. He has some 100 issues or something like that. They all miss out what Veda means. Veda means apaurusheya text only. And none of these problems are real problems for blocking apaurusheya, for rejecting apaurusheya. So with that, let's quickly go to the next one. Let's compare how the historic method for understanding history is. See, at the end of it all, here what you try to get into is what is the basis for accepting prasiddhi as a historical artifact. So we look at that. So into this I picked up from Wikipedia and from other places. So they say that primary sources are artifacts, relics, and documents. For example, how do you know British invasion has happened? So there will be some people who say there will be some documents that refer to them. There will be enough relics also of that. This is about British invasion. How do you know Akbar existed for that matter? Again, you will have similar artifacts and relics and documents. But what is the pramanya for these documents? Why should I believe this particular video actually captures a moment when British were ruling India? So when you go to those things, right, you will find that prasiddhi is the main reason by which you will accept any historical artifact. I do not doubt that this particular video refers to a moment when British was ruling India, because it is in agreement with many other things which are independent sources of the same fact.
Correct.
Very important. The prasiddhi is where how all these sources really become sources. They are not the main, what do you call them? The main thing is that they are source is also known through history only, through prasiddhi only. Right? And anyway, so I'm just picked up this thing from somewhere. Now, the other point is that, you can have, they also say that, that's why I said, you need to trust in the oral tradition. You cannot ignore that. The problem that people find with oral traditions is that, look, there are many silly things that have come up as part of a global belief system, or even within a local community or whatever it is. There is this temple is beginningless, or there are many traditions that have been there which truly are not traditions. In fact, Maha Bharata itself refers to a couple of things coming as Sanatana Dharma, but we are not Sanatana. They refer to cow getting killed, and there are two cows which lament that they think this is Sanatana Dharma, but cow should not be killed. Is that true Sanatana Dharma? So there can be corruptions in your tradition, even according to Mahabharata itself. Okay, so there are, the tradition can become corrupted. So how do you know that Apaurishaya thing is not a corrupted tenet? Is a question that you will land up with. And again, for the same thing, right? How do you know there is any flaw in any agama? Ditch historical method, ditch any this thing, right? How do you take a text? I will give you a text and then say identify the flaws in that. You will see anything that does not match is what do you call, is an error, is a flawed text. Or you will trace, for example, you will trace that this author was biased towards this particular political party. Therefore, we do not accept his. That's what happens in the current media or in the the other side, which is the people keep saying that BJP IT cell and all those things, right? There is distrust on the author, and that results in the distrust on the text. So the same kind of potential flaws can come in any historical artifact established through prasiddhi. But then again, you need to check if there is any flaw traceable to a walkthrough here. How do you know? Whoever people, right, whichever people have told you that this particular text did not have an author, did they have any, what do you
Well,
call, any reason or
agenda.
any agenda to give you that kind of notion? It is very, very counterintuitive. It is very, on the people try to claim text that they have not written if that text is important. And here you are having a tradition which tells you that look, nobody wrote this text. Right? I mean, so it is very counterintuitive. So whatever may be the other flaws of prasiddhi when it comes to any historical artifact, at least when it comes to Apaurishayatva, it is unquestionable. It is impeccable. You have to take it. So with that, let me, this was another thing which interesting thing that I found on Wikipedia. As oral tradition as an evidence for a historical thing. So he mentioned certain broad conditions. I would encourage you to go and read those because we have to go through the other thing on what a Shastra means. So he mentioned some things which are satisfied in our case. Okay. And there is no challenge to that particular condition. You can look at all of these things. It is very interesting.
Yes.
So Acharya's delineation comes very close to this. If you look at how he has expositioned Apaurishayatva. With that, let me come to what Acharya deems as Agama. So he basically says, Rgadya Bharatam Chaiva. This is again a Purana quote. This is a Brahmanda Purana quote. This is not his own, this is not a listing from his own whims and fancy. He says, Rugadya Bharatam Chaiva. First thing is an Apaurishaya Grantha, which is Rugadya, the four Vedas. Then Maha Bharata and then Pancharatra. Right. Then Mula Ramayanam Chaiva Puranam Chaitadatmakam. Pancharatra is Athakhilam, because there are schools which accept that Pancharatra is acceptable except for some contradictory positions. That's the position that Shankaracharya takes. We say that no, the entire thing is completely acceptable. Okay, and this position is not just told in Brahmanda Purana, it is also corroborated in the Maha Bharata itself. Right? In Shanti Parva, you will find references to this. Pancharatrasya Kritsnasya Vakta Narayana Swayam. Okay, Eteshu Granteshu Rajendra Jnanam Etad Visishyate. The one it is told in Pancharatra is the best jnana. He says that. Vaishampayana, he says that in response to a question from Janmejaya, who asks, which of these systems, do they all teach different things or do they teach the same thing? So he says, Jnanani Etani Bhinnani. The Pashupata Grantha is different. Pancharatra teaches different. So that again is a position against what many people today say. They are all different roads to the same thing. No, sir, it is not. They are different roads which lead to different destinations. And that's what Vaishampayana Rishi, who is a Sakshat disciple of Vedavyasa, tells in Mahabharata. So therefore, the Pancharatra is the best thing over there, and therefore here also Acharya, the Brahmanda Purana quotes mentions that. And Mula Ramayanam Chaiva. The existence of Mula Ramayana itself is a question to many people. They do not accept that. Correct. Which is little, not, which is surprising given that in Matsya Purana, right, Narada himself tells that, Charitam Raghunathasya Shatakoti Pravistaram. Yeah. He says that it is 100 crores long.
Yes.
So there are 100 crore verses over there. So that is what is referred here as Mula Ramayana. Valmiki has 24,000, right? And Puranam Chaitatmatmakam, very simple. Whichever Purana is in line with these are Sadagamas. And not only that, any other text, Yecha Anuyayinaha,
correct,
whichever is in alignment with this, Sarve Techa Sadagamaha. So this is, so those are considered Sadagama. So again, please note, Acharya is not saying anything on his own thing. He is referring to a Brahmanda Purana quote which defines Sadagama like this. Duragamas tairnagneyo janardanaha. And anything else which does not fall in line with this, which does not align to this in their context, in their content, are all duragamas. Why? Because Janardana is not to be known by them. Okay, and then he gives another condition saying that, you know, this is Neya Etaihi Sada Yuktaihi Bhaktimadbhir Sunishtitaihi Na Kevala Tarka. This we can, this is more on the other side of even these agamas, right? It is not like I can parse them using some NLP algorithm and then try to understand their purport. It can be known only by people who are logical and who are devoted and who have a lot of nishtha in all these things. And purely applying logic is not going to help. And that's what he says in the couple of next lines. With that, let's go to.
Well, I have an objection there.
Can I complete this one if you don't mind?
Okay.
We'll just there are a couple of points here. We'll need to move forward.
Yes.
So Agama means Rig and other Vedas, Maha Bharata, Pancharatra, Mula Ramayana, Purana, and any other Shastra that is aligned.
Correct.
So when it comes to Upanishads, right, there is a theory of 108 Upanishads and Muktika Upanishad being one of them. We do not accept that. We accept Parimala, which is Raghavendra Swami's work. He refers to 30 Upanishads, which were again quoted by Vijayendra Swami, Vijayendra Theertha in his, I think it is in Turiya Shivakandanam, he mentions these works. So apart from the 10, 12 Upanishads, he names some Upanishads as acceptable, and but Raghavendra Swami also says there are many Khila Upanishads. So things like Sannyasa Upanishad and all of them can come over there. But yeah, so this is one important point here. So there are people who try to pass off any Upanishad in the Muktika as a valid text on which we need to do that. There is no parampara for them. If you look at even, I'm not talking about just Madhva parampara. Even within the Advaita parampara, there is no history for many of them. They are all mostly, there after what is his person? Upanishad Brahmendra Yogi, which is like, some 2-3 centuries back, he was there. Before that, you will not find any references to many of the existing Upanishads, or their names would have been different, and they would have been branded differently or titled differently now.
And also many of them are subset of well-known Upanishads.
That is the claim. That is the claim. If you, for example, Shiva Sankalpa Upanishad is there. Yeah. It is part of the Yajur Veda. You can accept that, right? But for example, they say Bhakfrucha Upanishad is there. Bhakfrucha Upanishad, in fact, they claim that, you can say that there is some sort of parampara or prasiddhi because Appaya Dikshita has written a commentary on that. But that is also not right. I mean, you can, there is no, Appaya Dikshita's biography himself does not mention that particular text. And there is no, in fact, if you see Sayana's Sannyasa Upanishad text and the Upanishad Brahmendra Yogin's text, you will find lots of differences there. So whichever did not have, and if you see the Dara Shiko's list of 60 Upanishads, right, you will find totally a different text over there. And you will also find that texts which have been quoted as Upanishads by commentators on Kalpa Sutras, right? They mention lots of texts whose names are not even known. Those things are not there in Muktika Upanishad. So there is, I mean, there is a lot of indication that it is all fabricated. And it's a good offense on the Madhva system, saying that you need to consider these things. But those Upanishads do not have any parampara, and therefore they are not parampara siddha Veda Vakyanusari. Therefore, they are not to be taken seriously. With that, we'll go to the other author texts also. We do accept Jaimini's Mimamsa Sutras, the Karma, Athato Dharma Jigyasa, and the other whatever karma mimamsa sutras are there, we do accept them, but we do not accept the commentaries or thereof. We do not, for example, take Shabara Bhashya as completely authoritative. We can use it whenever it is convenient, but it is not like we are like totally bound to that. In fact, we do not, in one place in Chandrika Prakasha, Raghavendra Swami says that, for example, the Vedopakrama Adhikarana is wrongly named by Shabara. It has a different meaning, and he, in fact, offsets it with the correct interpretation. So you will find such both acceptance as well as, so it is very conditional. Similarly, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Siksha, Jyotisha, all these things, whatever granthas we see today, unless they are accept. For example, if you take Rig Vidhana, right, which talks about the benefits for different mantras, right, it is acceptable. But if there is anything in that which is objectionable, which is, which does not suit the Maha Tatparya of all these, the previous granthas, then it can be rejected. Similarly, Valmiki Narayana, Ramayana, we do accept that as, in fact, there are glorifying words from Narayana Panditacharya on Valmiki Ramayana in Sangraha Ramayana. We do accept Valmiki is none other than Varuna's son. So he's an Apta, but he has narrated many incidents from Laukika Drishti, which is that, how a person will see them. For example, if Rama cries, he will see Rama has cried there, right? He will write Rama has cried. And if Hanuman does like this, he will say that, okay, Hanuman is in doubt. So all these things are from Laukika Drishti. He will write all of that. But when you do some correlation with the main granthas, you need to say that, Hanuman did not have any doubt, because the Upanishad says that, right? I mean, na tadvayoha, na astamita devata, use all these devatas knowledge, it has a setting, it can go down, but na vayoha, not for vayu. How can that? And the Balita Sukta also tells you that his knowledge is intact in all his avatars. So with all these things, we have to say that his Ramayana is, again, it is acceptable, but you cannot take that as the final word when it comes to Adhyatma. With that, these are the things that are not accepted because of 108 Upanishads, Muktika Upanishads. I mean, if there is now Allah Upanishad also, on what basis will you reject it? Right? It is because there is no parampara for that. Only Akbar, it was miraculously found when Akbar was there. I mean, so the same thing applies even to the rest of the things in Muktika, right? Bhafricha is there, right? If you go to Parashara Madhaviya, or if you go to many other granthas on the Aitareya thing, they used to refer to the Aitareya as Bhakvricha. Bhakvricha means many riks.
Correct.
So the Aitareya Upanishad, or that particular Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad, is the Bhakvricha. On the other hand, now whatever you see as Bhakvricha Upanishad, it will talk about some Devi being there and she giving birth to Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva and all those things. Look, it is not that we have a problem reconciling that tenet, okay? If you read Maha Bharta, 3rd Adhyaya, he tells you how Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, which are all coming out from Maya, okay? Acharya says this thing. So it is not difficult for, and they're all rupas of Vishnu only. That's a different point. But it is not difficult to have an explanation for the extant text of Bhagavata. But there is no parampara for that. That is the reason why you have to reject that. Same thing applies for Yoga Vasishtha. I mean, it is a relatively longer text, but the fact that nobody uses this in Advaita Parampara in an argument, at least until 16th, 17th century, tells you how much of a parampara it has. Similarly, all these many other Gitas that are there, Ashtavakra Gita and so on and so forth. So we do not consider these as Agama, unless somebody is already brainwashed by Art of Living or the Isha Foundation or any other guru like that.
That is quite a sweeping conclusion.
I know. But the fact, I'll tell you, the worst problem I will tell you is that, see, the thing is that many Madhva authors themselves don't state this thing explicitly. They don't state it explicitly. But if you look at Acharya's way to detect secretly composed text, these fall in that particular category.
No. I think I need to stop you here because it's.
Yeah, now you can ask your question.
Yeah, you're going too far, laying down on one direction. This is precisely the problem in Acharya's approach. This is precisely, in my view, is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The way he's trying to establish only certain things are acceptable leads to a dosha of tautology.
Sorry, what is it?
Dosha of tautology.
Okay.
What is that? For example, this quotation, what Rugadya Bharatam Chaivayo quotation is from some Brahmanda Purana, some Purana, whatever Purana it is.
Right.
Now, that Purana is also given within this as an authoritative text.
Absolutely.
That's
Very good.
unfair, no? On what?
Yeah, I got it. Let me answer that point right now before you go further, if you don't mind. So, till here, what he has done, right, is to establish that Veda is Apaurushaya and therefore a Pramana by itself.
Correct.
Right? In fact, before he comes to this, he says, right, before he comes to even this VTV and 1 here, before he comes this, he says, he questions exactly this point, whatever you are just saying. Nacha etesham vachananam apramanyam. He says that these are not apramana. He says that same thing. Okay. And why is that? It is because, I can show you that thing to you if you don't mind. Okay. 1 minute. Let me open that text. I hope. Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit in English, but I'm sure you'll be able to get the point there. Yeah. You're able to see the text by any chance?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah. See here. He says, Nacha etesham vachananam eva apramanyam. Don't say that these vachanas, which is including here, right? They are apramanya. Why? Because apurshayatvat vedasya.
I'm sorry, I can't see that. Where is the text?
Here.
Read that? No, it has come up. No, yeah.
Yeah. So he does just come after this one. Rigadya Bharatam Chaiva.
It went away.
Now?
The highlight portion, right? It just went away.
1 minute, just wait for a minute.
Up a little bit.
Vachananam eva apramanyam. Don't say that these vachanas, whichever, including the Brahmanda Purana quote that he gave here,
yes,
okay, is apramana. Why? Because Veda is Apaurushaya. Okay, Veda may be Apaurushaya, but this is still a Purana, no? He says no, but the Veda itself has sanctified that as a Veda. Panchama Veda. Itihasa Puranaha.
No.
Panchamo Vedanam Vedaha.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I think this is sleight of hands. While Vedas are talking about Panchamo Vedana, Vedaha, I said that it has not specifically indicated the Purana from which he's quoting. See, he's using
that is fine, agreed. But it is saying that generically Purana is a Pramana. Do you accept that?
Very, very conditionally, because if anything and everything.
Conditionally.
I tell you why it is conditional.
Okay.
But anything and everything can be given as Purana, right?
No. The 1 minute. That is another problem which Brahma Samaj or Arya Samaj they get into. They say that this Purana does not refer to the text that is called as Purana today. So this is more fundamental question of the language, right? I mean, any point. Let's say it talks about Agni, right? Does it refer to the fire that is out there, or does it refer to this laptop as Agni? So you need to accept that the language also has evolved from there.
That is not the argument. I think that is some other argument you are addressing. Okay. The argument is even assuming this refers to the Purana in general. Panchamo Vedana, Veda is told. Itihasa Purana, Panchamo. I agree. But what is that Purana list? Number one, we don't know.
No, why we don't know? We know that also from
this does not say no. This is Chandogya, right? You're quoting
1 minute. I have a question. Does it say which is the Itihasa then?
Right.
So that's why I asked you, sir. The other question is, see, when you refer to Agni, when you refer to Vayu, when it refers to Bhumi or whatever it is, when the Veda refers to that, is it referring to the entities that are in Prasiddhi, known by those names, or is it referring to something else?
I agree. Can I complete my point, please? I agree with you, but the point is he is taking umbrage too much liberty with this, because I agree there is an accepted Prasiddhi lista or some 18 Puranas, let us assume.
Okay.
I'm not even going to classification to Sattva, Rajasa and all the stuff.
Yeah.
18 Puranas accepted.
Okay.
But there is no way this, I'm assuming this Chandogya quote, correct?
Yeah, it is here. Chandogya
No
7.1.
way you can use this as a validation to a specific paragraph which picks up from specific Purana and say this is sanctified by Chandogya Upanishad quote is a leap, not acceptable.
You are okay. Are you done, or is there more to say?
There is no enough cross-referencing to prove that.
Okay, so there are multiple types of issues you can have when you say that, when you basically object applying this to the particular code, right? So this is very generic in its scope. It says Itihasa and Purana are Pramana, like it's the fifth Veda. Now, you can either claim that, whatever is currently labeled as a Purana is not this Purana. It is something else. That is one way to do it. Another one, you say, look, all of the Purana is not mentioned here, only some part of the Purana. I mean, that's what even Madhvas will say, right? So some part of the Purana is what is told over there. Or you can say that all Purana is considered a Pramana according to this particular line, right? My point is, if you take the first stance, it leads to Ati Prasanga, what we call as Ati Prasanga. Basically, it is not just Itihasa and Purana. Brahma refers to, for example, this laptop. Or I can make random word meaning assignments and then claim that, your tenet is not, whichever tenet you claim is not supported that particular Veda. For example, I can say Itihasa is not even referring to the text. It is referring to this mobile phone. That is a very random word meaning assignment. So which is not to be taken seriously, because, at the end of it, language which says that this particular word means this particular thing cannot be ignored just like that, right? So we have the first objection, that the Purana and the Itihasa do not refer to the popular Purana and Itihasa, but to some other text. We have to ignore that particular thing, because the same thing can be over applied in other contexts, and which eventually is a way to give up on the Veda thing, right? That is point number one. The point number two is, okay, look, the Itihasa and Purana refers here only to this particular text, is a leap of faith that you are doing. Okay, the text as it reads, it says that it is fifth Veda, and therefore, the Pramanya is kind of accepted. So the starting position has to be that all of Itihasa and Purana is a Pramana. All of it. If you say no, not this portion, you need to give a reason for that. So the burden of proof saying that it does not apply everywhere is on the person who is disclaiming this particular, who is limiting this particular sentence, and not on the guy who is reading it as it reads.
It is on me. I will give now. Right away, I can give you. I totally agree with you. The onus is on me. What is the proof? Again, Srimad Acharya himself is on record saying that Maha Bharata, etc., has got enormous problems. So he himself, I'm not putting my argument.
We'll ignore Madhwacharya for the time being.
Why?
No, we'll come to that. Why is he a Pramana for us? That is also a questionable thing, right? At the end of it.
You are discussing his quote, right? That is why we are talking about him.
That is fine, but see, there is a way to reconcile his words with that one. But before we go there, you have to first admit that, at least whatever this line tells, it is that, this quote is not ignorable. Right. It is not tautological. Right? There is no complication there.
Correct.
So with that, we will come to now the other point, which is that, if Acharya has said that, how can you, this one is saying Itihasa Purana is the Veda, Acharya is saying Itihasa is corrupted, but Acharya never said that Itihasa is not a Pramana. He has told you that it is corrupted, and he has told you that, look, I have found ways by which we will remove the corruptions, and I will tell you the truth that is told in the original that is reflecting across all these works. That is only in one work, which is Maha Bharata Tatparine, by the way. When it comes to the Veda, he still follows the existing text only. And whatever were relevant, that applies even to the so-called untraceable texts. Hello?
Yeah. I'm listening.
So my point is that, okay, let's come back to this quote. Therefore, this quote, which is from Brahmanda Purana, tells you the scope of what is the this one. And by the way, even so, my point is that this is just a summarization of how you would arrive at it logically. It is not because of this quote that we take Rigadhya and Bharata and all those things. Without this quote also, what is available to you at the end of it is the four Vedas, which are Apaurushaya texts. Now, those refer to Itihasa and Purana, which is, Bharata and
Ramayana.
Mula Ramayana. Okay, that is the Itihasa, and Purana is anyway, Purana is there, right? Now, Mahabharata also, I mean, as a matter of, as a side note, right? Bharata also tells this, right? Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupabramhayet. Okay, Bibharti Alpashrutad Vedo na Mamayam Pracharishyati. It says that, okay, which means that the Vedas, right? The Abhimani Devatas, they are afraid. They become, they tremble that, if this guy who is not well read, who does not use the Itihasa and Purana to understand me, they will come and then they will make a mess out of me. That is what these Vedas think. This is told in Mahabharata itself. So, because Mahabharata and Purana, and this is again a side note, that is not the main proof of why you should admit Itihasa and Purana as a Pramana. The main proof is because Chandogya Upanishad, and of course there are many other texts which talk about Purana and Itihasa as Panchama Veda. And the same Mahabharata refers to Pancharatra as a Pramanika Grantha. Therefore, it has to be accepted. So all these things are available to you by just pure logic. This Brahmanda Purana just assimilates all of that and then summarizes it in a consumable way. That's all it does. So with that, basically, I would like to say that we will go with these texts as our basis for understanding the Atindriya, this one, and we have kind of gone again beyond 1 hour. So we'll need to continue with your question and then ontology thing later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So it's very good, really speaking, because the fundamental argument is that either you accept Madhwacharya or you don't accept. You have a right to do that. But
I think that is whatever sources he has given as Apaurushaya, this thing, you have to start from there. I mean,
no,
I tell you, when I started,
yes.
I was not sure why you have to believe in Madhwacharya. Why should you? I mean, and later I extended the same question to Jayatirthur also. Later I extended the same question to Raidu. I mean, they are miracles. They have helped me. All those things are one side. What is their pramanya? Why should I believe them?
Yeah. Let me summarize this way, because I think I'm looking not from a scholarly person point of view like you, but an average person who is interested point of view. It is first you hear that, okay, we all know that, like if it is XYZ, some Rama Subramaniam or Krishnamurti Rao, I know, when comparative, when Madhwacharya says something, we say, okay, he's more likely to be correct, without even knowing the details of what he's saying. That is where your Prasiddhi concept becomes very, very, very valid. I know at least 10,000 people who are very good people, honest people, sincere people, who lived a great life. And they say, yeah, you can trust Madhwacharya. I would rather go and listen rather than Krishnamurti Rao or Ramasubramaniam. From that logic, I am saying, if I start in that way, if he is saying that this are the valid texts which I'm going to base on entire philosophy based on this, and to substantiate the validity of the set of texts, he is using Chandogya Upanishad quote to say that the Itihasa and Puranas are to be treated as Panchama Vedas. And then if I, theoretically, like I was asking, theoretically one can doubt that the Purana list may not correspond to this Purana list, or even assume the identical list of Puranas, the context, because a lot of doubt about it there, maybe this particular quotation, what he is doing is the insertion. One can potentially take a logical argument on that. However, that argument is easily defeated by the starting point which I had. I am talking about listening and I'm learning more and more about what Madhwacharya said, because I have a prasiddhi established that he is a reliable person. And since he has already given this quotation, right, therefore, most likely, since he was honest enough, I don't know how many have been done like that, but he has been very honest to openly say in Maha Bharta Pranirnaya that I am really aghast to see so many mutilations, editions, versions, etc. Therefore, if he is seeing this quotation as a mutilation or insertion, he would say so because he has done for major texts like Mahabharata. And therefore, I would say he has established his credibility as a very, very reasonable, logical, honest person. And therefore, even though theoretical risk exists, on a pragmatic prasiddhi basis, we would dismiss that. And therefore, we have to accept his premise that this Brahmanda Purana quote, which lists what are the acceptable agama, is if other philosophers or other individuals have a total right to have a different set of things based on their own logic. I am not even going into the fundamental right. Looking at the way Tattva Vada has been built, since he has established the premise and the validation text, we have to accept it. I think that because readers who viewers who are going to view this conversation will not everybody is asking questions. Only one or two people per session is asking questions, but the doubt will have remained. Therefore, as it were, I wanted to represent the doubting Thomas, who could say, "Oh, why should I accept it? It's the self-presumptive tautology and all that might come." Therefore, my argument is based on all your explanations. This is why. And you going to base your further actually etching and greater definitions of Tattva Vada going forward based on it. This is therefore the viewers, please think about it. You may not accept it what Madhwacharya is going to say or what Krishna is going to say that Madhwacharya said in future in the future sessions. That is your fundamental right as a Jignasu. I'm not going there. But look at the logical way in which it's being built. His point of view, that is Madhwacharya's point of view, is based on what? Based on this set of texts. If you have a problem with this, any of the text readers or viewers, feel free, read it. I disagree. That's part of your journey. But understand that entire edifice is based on authenticated by this set of agamas. Very, very important. That is the summarization which I want to do. Please correct me if I did anything wrong in this summarization.
That is fine, sir.
Okay.
I think we'll have more discussion on this one in the next session also. But we'll quickly now go to the next part, which is, what is the conclusion? Why this conclusion? Why this interpretation? We will come to those things in the subsequent session.
I would request you, I don't know whether you thought about it as part of scope, but my personal request to you, you don't want to do it in the conversation, it's fine, you can send it separately, is that based on all the things, I have personally, because based on my experience, I'm saying, nobody else has taken, all the philosophers have taken so much pain to define each and everything, such a minute detail like Madhwacharya has done. Can you put all these various texts together and create a structure of a Jiva? What are the components of a Jiva? I personally did it because another session where I do on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, a bunch of Americans attend that. They're fascinated by this Jiva idea and the constituents, etc. I gave them some rough idea, but I told them at the right sutra when it comes, I will introduce you the structure. Mm-hmm. So many of them done it, but I think nobody goes to detail, like, each and everything like what Shrimad Ananda Theertha Muni goes. So it will help me personally if you can tell me what are the constituents of a Jiva, what are the components, because I want to tie it down to when they talk about salvation or moksha, or when due to samadhi, or when they talk about all the good work you have done in this birth, it's migrated to another birth. How does it do? I want to connect it because being Americans, they are very inquisitive, and they want to go logical. Their approach is very correct. Something has to go from this instant to another instant. What is that? How is the question they are asking me? It will be very helpful to me if you can help me here.
I will try, sir. I am not sure I can create a comprehensive one because I am not a scholar. So I will try to do whatever I know.
Yes, you can ask your guru scholars also, if you can. Thank you very much. Thank you. Namaskar.